Hello, my name is DerindaMeade, and I am a current junior at the University of South Carolina Upstate. And this is my podcast on the largest data breach to date, the 2015 Anthem data breach. Anthem is a subsidiary of the Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance company. And in 2015, Anthem had the largest data breach to date. And we will go over more details in this podcast. In here, we will also go over the breach timeline. How did the breach occur? How many were affected? And what was taken from Anthem? What penalties did Anthem face? And how we can prevent making the same mistake. So the Anthem breach timeline looks as follows. In February of 2014, Anthem had started slacking on their cyber attack preventions. They failed to adequately monitor and assess potential threats. So in December of 2014 through January, the end of January 2015, cyber attacks occurred. Now, these are just the attacks where the information was taken. This does not include the actual attacks that led to the information being taken. And this is a critical element because in 2014, what happened was there was a spear phishing attack, which caused employees of a small subsidiary of Anthem, a small separate little group, and they were receiving tailored phishing emails with a click here link. It only took one, maybe more than one employee opened it up, but all it took was one. They opened it up, causing malware to be downloaded. So once the malware is downloaded in 2014 of February, all it took was that open door. From December through the end of January, the cyber attacks occur and led to the data being taken from Anthem. January 29th, 2015 is when Anthem discovered the breach. So they failed to discover that they had not only been breached, but they had data being taken from them on a regular, steady basis for over a month, almost 2 months before they realized this. They announced on the media that they had discovered this breach, and they were working to resolve it and ensure the safety of their members' information. And they were offering members 2 years, I believe, of free credit monitoring. The HHS opened a compliance review of Anthem after seeing these media reports in February 13th of 2015. HHS is basically the Department of Health and Human Services. They are the ones who do Medicare and Medicaid, as well as with the OCR, the Office of Civil Rights. They also enforce the HIPAA policies, which protects our health information. March 13th of 2015, Anthem files the breach report with the OCR. After filing the breach report, that is when Anthem discovered that the email phishing attack opened the door before they ever had the cyber attacks occur. Now the investigation with the OCR went on through 2015, and settlements have finally been reached at the end of 2018. In August of 2018, a U.S. District Court issued the final approval of a $115 million settlement to end all class action lawsuits. This set up a fund for any members who needed to pay for the credit monitoring from this breach, or any who already received credit monitoring but had additional expenses incurred because of this breach. This was to help cover those members. In October 15th of 2018, just last year, Anthem and the Office of Civil Rights finally reached a $16 million settlement. This was just a penalty paid to the Office of Civil Rights for their failure to comply and properly protect their data. So, how did the breach occur? Well, as I've already mentioned, that they failed to conduct enterprise-wide risk analysis. Basically, they didn't analyze their own systems for potential threats and risks. They had insufficient procedures to regularly review information system activity, meaning they didn't set those up and they didn't follow through with them. This leads to the failure to identify and respond to suspected or known security incidents. And they failed to implement adequate minimum access controls to prevent cyber attackers from accessing the electronic protected health information. Basically, what this means is anyone who accessed the information had full access. So it just took one open door to grant full access to these electronic records, instead of having tiered effect where no information could have been given unless a person of a higher clearance was the one who opened the door. Anthem discovered later that the one employee at the small subsidiary is the one who opened the phishing email, and they don't know whether it was just one employee or whether there were more. But that door, that open door, is what led to the exfiltration of data that lasted almost 2 months before it was discovered. 2 months it took Anthem to not stop it, but to just discover it. Once it was discovered, I'm sure it didn't take long to stop. So how many were affected and what was taken? 78.8 million patients had their electronic health record compromised. The stolen data included names, social security numbers, medical identification numbers. Most people don't realize medical identification numbers are basically what hospital systems use to identify their patients. It's kind of like your social security number with the hospital system. It's unique to the patient and how they can identify the patient without using some of the other identifiers, which might match someone else. Think of how many John Smiths could be out there. Some of them could share the same birthday. So the medical identification number is another way to identify a patient without having to use their social security number or their personal information. Also stolen were addresses, their dates of birth, email addresses, so then the patients can then themselves be hacked, and employment information. Now let's go back to the email addresses, because this is super important, because not only were these 78.8 million patients at risk for having their electronic health record compromised, but many of them were also at risk for possible phishing attacks themselves due to their email addresses. Many of them received phone calls and emails from hackers pretending to be Anthem and send them phishing emails with click here links to get free credit monitoring for 2 years. Anthem had to do a press release to ensure and tell their members that they were not sending any links, emails, and they were not calling any of their members asking for credit card information or social security numbers in regards to this event. All members were advised to contact Anthem or to follow, or were sent paper letters with the instructions on how to acquire the free credit monitoring. No emails were sent, no phone calls were made, and Anthem had to go through a lot to advise their members of not only did we mess up and your data taken, but now you're also at risk to have more of your information stolen by these phishing attacks. So what penalties did Anthem face? Well, as we stated in the timeline, they basically lost a lot of money. And we're going to go over what this means for Anthem. So on August 16th of 2018, the U.S. Court District gave the final approval for the class action settlement against Anthem. The total being $115 million set aside for that settlement to end any further legal claims. Basically meaning no other legal lawsuits could be placed against Anthem for this event. On October 15th, 2018, the Office of Civil Rights Regional Manager for the New England region, Susan M. Pizzulo Rhodes, and then the Senior Vice President and Chief Compliance Officer for Anthem, Ms. Sarah J. Lawrence, signed the Department of Health and Human Services Resolution Agreement. In this agreement, Anthem agreed to a $16 million penalty payment, and they agreed to a detailed corrective action plan outlined in the resolution's Appendix A. I've linked the PDF for that resolution if you'd like to read over the entire corrective action plan outlined. Now, the penalties, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. But when you think about how much Anthem makes in a year, totaling, I believe in 2017 they had $90 billion was their net. This is just a fraction of it. One of my sources said that it basically equates to like 0.5% of their annual income, their annual money. So not a very big in correlation to how much they make, but to the average person and anyone running this, that's gotta hurt just thinking about it, right? So how can we prevent making the same mistake? Well, compliance and monitoring are key. To ensure compliance, all employees must be educated on the whys and hows of network security. This means they've got to know why it's important for them to follow these policies. They've got to know what it means if they don't follow the policies. What could happen? What is at risk? And they've got to know how to follow these policies that we make. Most employees, you're going to have some who you tell them what to do and they're going to do it. You're going to have others who need the why to do it. The best thing you can do is, if it messes with their money, they're not going to do it. Network security policies must be made and they must be enforced. A policy is only as good as its enforcement. So if you've got employees who are against policy using their email for other things, with proper monitoring, you can catch that. and you must enforce it. Enforcing, unfortunately, does sometimes mean there are punishments, but they need to happen to properly secure your data. To ensure acceptable monitoring, you need to constantly and consistently analyze system security for breaches and attacks, for potential threats and system vulnerabilities. Do not settle for just looking for what has occurred, but be ready and search for potential threats. The system vulnerabilities where you might see something. Don't wait for a breach to happen. Try to prevent one from happening. We don't need to be reactive to these network security problems. We need to be proactive. We need to keep our head in the game. You need to evolve. Recognize that network security has to constantly evolve to be able to protect against newer and more sophisticated threats. Hackers aren't going to stop, and everything we do to ensure that they can't get into our data, they're going to learn how to get around it. We must always be ever vigilant in securing our information. So these are some of the resources that I've used. The HIPAA Journal, HIPAAjournal.com, had 2 articles that were very beneficial. One was Healthcare Data Breach Statistics, which has a lot of interesting information on the general statistics of data breaches in healthcare, with how that is trending. One of the interesting statistics on that in that article was one of I mentioned earlier, where the number of breaches is actually greater now than it was 5 years ago, but the amount of data taken is about the same or less than, basically meaning that we are doing a really good job of, or maybe not a really good job, but a decent job of securing the data. But they do specify that it could be just that we have more data breaches reported now versus what we did 5 years ago. So it's an interesting take and an interesting look on that, and it's a lot of interesting information. The other article I used from HIPAA Journal was the court approves Anthem settlement. This one goes over the information on the U.S. Court District settlement for the legal case against Anthem. The Anthem reveals more about data breach and warns of phishing scam by LifeLock is where I got the information about Anthem releasing information to their members about potential phishing threats via the phone and emails to their members. And from the hhs.gov website, I used the article on their release for their information for the settlement reached on October 15th of 2018, where they specified this is the largest data breach in history, is also the largest settlement to date due to a data breach. The other thing used from HHS.gov is the PDF, and I linked that earlier in this cast, and I've put it on here again. And the last one here is Throwback Thursday, Whatever Happened to Anthem. This was done by SecurityBoulevard.com, and it had a lot of just overall information. That some of the information was found on these other sites, and some of it was new to this site. But it was very interesting and very recent, seeing as how it was just posted earlier this year. So I hope you have enjoyed this information on the Anthem data breach of 2015 and understand what it means for us and how we can use it to move forward, to properly educate ourselves, and take this as the warning, as the heads up that we need to make a change, and we need to do it now. We don't need to wait. We need to secure our data now before any more things happen. Thank you, and have a good day.